wisdom as they consider decisions, give them a great sense of service as they serve all of us well, help them to continue to do that. We pray for your blessing on this city. You've blessed it much in the past, and we've got some great assets and some wonderful people here in this city. We pray your continued blessing on it going forward, and we pray for this evening as well specifically, and information that will be talked about, and if any decisions will be made, we just pray for your discernment, and we pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Bosch. We'll now pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Be seated. We'll take a look at the minutes from our last meeting, and for the record, all council members are present. Legal is not here this evening. First item is the approval of the minutes from our June meeting. Looking for your approval.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion to approve along with the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Again, I want to welcome everybody that's here this evening. We do have a special guest that comes in about every year now, right, Dr. Bosch? And gives us an update on how things are going. It is in. Hopefully all of the technology will work. Council members, you may want to turn your seats around, and you'll be able to see the screen just a little bit better. Thanks again for coming.
All right, thank you for having me. This is sort of a shareholder update, if you will. You guys are partners with us in our work as we look after the lakes here in the city of Warsaw, 3 of them. And so just wanting to give you an update on what we've been doing with your partnership, and kind of update you a little bit on some of the projects that we're working on. So let's first be reminded about the economic impact of our lakes here in the city of Lakes, Warsaw, Indiana. So we have Center Pike and Winona, and we looked at an economic impact study. This is already about 10 years back, so we updated it based on inflation for 2024, and we're going to be redoing this study over the next year with our School of Business at Grace College, and so look forward to, I don't know if it'll be done yet the summer of 27, but surely when I'm back the summer of 28, we'll have brand new numbers, and they're going to be even more thorough than we were in this economic analysis. For now, with this data that's been adjusted for inflation, these 3 lakes together generate over $3 million of annual property tax revenue. These 3 lakes, their property values total over $250 million. And the total county lake economic impact for Kosciuszko County is over $400 million. That's every single year, over $400 million comes into Kosciuszko County that wouldn't normally come into Kosciuszko County, simply because we've been blessed with all of these wonderful lakes. Also, that annual property tax revenue, that's only taking the lake portion of those property values. And so, thought of another way, if you have $1 million home on a lake, we're only looking at the portion of the value of that home due to the lake. If that home was out in the middle of a cornfield, likely that property value would come down, and so we're only looking at that sort of inflated part of the value due to the lake. So that's a very conservative number, over $3 million. We also drilled in a little bit more and we worked with the United States Environmental Protection Agency on this study. So they looked across all the counties in the United States, and they chose to do this new research in Kosciuszko County, Indiana, working with us because of the data that we had been collecting over the past few years. And what we found is if we could improve the clarity of our lakes by just 12 inches, we could expect very large property value increases on the whole across the county, over $100 million of property increase due to that improvement in water clarity. For the City of Lakes here, taken in Warsaw, if we look at our 3 lakes, we can see at Center Lake, just about a $2 million increase in property values if we have that 1 foot improvement in clarity. Pike Lake, a $6 million increase, and Winona Lake, almost $20 million of property value increase due to that improvement. And that's one of the things that we're working on. We're actively trying to make our lakes cleaner, which will also make them clearer. Give you a little bit of an update on research. So we work in 3 areas: research, education, and collaboration. Research helps us identify threats around our lakes and also find the most strategic solutions. I'm going to go into a little more depth on the 2 bullets that are in blue there, lake and stream sampling, where we sample every week from Memorial Day to Labor Day on the lakes, and then the stream sampling we do year-round. We've looked at economic impact, as we've already talked about. We look at water clarity, property values, as we've talked about. We look at lake water levels. We've looked at public sewers around the lakes and how that impacts our lakes. We look at blue-green algae toxins. We'll talk a little bit more about that this evening. Also boating and zebra mussels. You can see some pictures there in the bottom left. We also look at weed control in the lakes and shoreline vegetation around the lakes. All of these things have been areas of research, and all of our research study results are always posted on our website, and so you can go and look at any of those, lakes.grace.edu. Let's dig into a little data. You guys know me as pretty nerdy, and so I'm never going to be here without at least a slide or 2 like this. And these are also in your booklet that I put on your table beneath the surface. That's our 2025 research report. Anybody else who doesn't have a paper copy, it's available on our website as well. So here we're looking at Center Pike and Winona water clarity. So that's how much visibility there is in the water. This is measured by a Secchi disc, which is a white and black disc that we lower in the water until we can't distinguish the white from the black anymore. Diane sees this on Pike Lake every week. She's our boat captain out on Pike Lake. If you look at 2023, 24, and 25, you can see that it's similar for each of these lakes. Maximum water clarity is in blue, the average across the whole summer is in green, and then in orange, that's the minimum water clarity. If you look at these, you can start to see, even though all 3 of these lakes are within the city of Warsaw, they have very different water clarity. Which one has the least water clarity of the Yes, Diane.
Pike Lake.
Pike Lake, good. All right, it's a little bit like a college class in here. I love it. All right, so Pike Lake has the least water clarity, and then which one has the most? Center does. Okay, and Center actually has among the best water clarity of the lakes in our entire county that we sample. We sample 16 lakes every single week, and Center is among the best. So pretty cool right here in the city. What I think is so amazing is you have Pike and Center Lake less than a quarter mile apart, but yet look at those differences, right? Amazing, just one on either side of Detroit Street, but yet very different. So the main difference for Pike and Center with why we get these numbers is that Center Lake is mostly fed by stormwater. So we have stormwater coming out of the city and into the lake. There's lots of stormwater outfalls. Those are the pipes that bring stormwater into Center Lake, as well as around the yards around Center Lake. Pike Lake is predominantly fed by Deeds Creek. a little bit from Byron Brady Ditch as well, but mostly from Deeds Creek. And so Deeds Creek comes through a lot of agricultural areas, spanning all the way out to Pierceton. And so with all of that area, that watershed area, that drainage area, we pull in lots of nutrients and sediments, which make the lake less clear. The sediments themselves can make the lake less clear, and then the nutrients make more algae to grow, which also makes it less clear. Whereas Center Lake is just getting that stormwater, and this is a really good point for the city to show that the stormwater work that the city is doing is working. Our stormwater utility is ensuring that that water coming into Center Lake is pretty clean, which allows us to have good water clarity in Center Lake. Winona's kind of in the middle. Winona has some inflowing streams and some stormwater coming into Winona Lake. So Pike and Winona, you see both deserve a good bit of effort, as well as Center continuing to protect it. Let's look at one of the specific types of algae that can grow from those nutrients coming in, and that is blue-green algae. Top left there, that's Center Lake from a few years back. That was actually taken over Christmas time, when the entire lake had a reddish sort of pink hue. Planktothrix rubescens is the type of algae that was prolific in the lake at that time, and someone sent us this photo from an airplane coming into Warsaw Airport, and you can actually see that algae bloom, and that is one that produces toxins. We were actually worried, that was back when we were doing the Lakes Festival. We partnered on that with the city at that time, and it lasted all the way into the summer when we were doing the Lakes Festival over Memorial Day weekend. We were worried we might have to change some of the festival activities because of that algal bloom, because of the toxins that were there. Top right, that's Chapman Lake. Just a couple summers ago, that's the highest toxin readings that we've measured in Kosciuszko County. To give you a sense of the numbers, 0.8 parts per billion is where Indiana Department of Environmental Management suggests pets stay out of the water, dogs mostly. 8.0 is where people start limiting contact. 20.0 is where people should stay out of the water. Chapman Lake at that time in this area was at 160, so pretty high. We haven't seen that high of level in the three Warsaw lakes. So, and then bottom left there, those pictures are from Grand Lake St. Mary's in Ohio. That's like their Lake Wawasee. That's their largest inland lake in Ohio. And they've had blue-green algae toxin issues for many years and have spent lots and lots of money trying to fix those problems. We're trying to stay a little more proactive here so we don't get to that point. We have a lab on campus where we can detect rapidly, and we can let everybody know every week what our levels are looking like in our lakes. If you're not signed up for that notification, there's a QR code in the bottom right. You can snap a photo of that. It's going to be on the next slide as well. All right, this is the second of the two data slides that I have in here. So here we've got all 16 lakes that we sample across Kosciuszko County every week during the summer months in alphabetical order. Big Barbee, Big Chapman, Beaver Dam, which is down in the southern part of the county, Center, Dewart, James, that's also known as Little Tippy, part of the Tippy chain, Oswego, also part of the Tippy chain, Pike, Silver, Syracuse, Tippy itself, Waubee, Wawasee, Webster, Winona, and Yellow Creek, also down in the southern part of the county. We're looking at the last 3 years of microcystin. Microcystin is the most common of the algae toxins. We've looked at 5 different algae toxins across our lakes. Microcystin is the most common. Let me just take a moment and say this about these toxins. There's no other county in Indiana that is sampling algae toxins to this level. We are keeping our residents safer in Kosciuszko County than any other county in Indiana. IDEM does do sampling of algae toxins at state park public swimming beaches, but we're able to carry that sampling across many of our lakes in Kosciuszko County, including the 3 here in the city of Warsaw. So if we look at these numbers then, we have 2023, 24, and 25, blue, green, and orange. This is the average across the entire summer. Just for reference, we have the non-detect black line across there. Below that, we're not really confident of the numbers because our lab analysis can't even go down that far reliably. The green line, that's that dog threshold according to Indiana Department of Environmental Management. And so when a lake on average goes over the dog threshold, that means that many times throughout that summer was that lake closed, okay? It was closed more, the average is higher than what that threshold is. So if you just scan across there and see some of those lakes, Big Chapman, Beaver Dam, Silver, Waubee, Wawasee, it's interesting, many of those lakes are among the clearest lakes in the county. Big Chapman is really clear, Waubee is really clear, Wawasee is really clear. So even though they're clear, they don't have a lot of algae in them. For whatever reason, the few algae that are there are producing relatively more toxin than the other lakes. Some of the lakes like Beaver Dam, Silver, those have a lot of algae and also have a lot of toxin relative to the other lakes. And so there's some interesting science questions that we're trying to tease out here with our research, and we don't have it figured out yet. Let's move into education. A little less data when we talk about education. So we want to educate the next generation of water literate citizens to help these students build a meaningful connection with their local environment and their civic responsibility. And this is an area that we've partnered with the City of Warsaw with your stormwater utility for a number of years now. We do outdoor, indoor field trips, lake adventure days. We send aquariums with local fish into classrooms and libraries all around the county. Last school year, we had over 10,000 student connections. We got the Governor's Award a couple years ago for the top environmental education program in the state of Indiana. We also have sent out many environmental professionals as a result of our college environmental science program that I have the privilege of being able to teach and mentor those students. And then the third area that we work in is collaboration. We can be more efficient and more effective when we work together with other groups. So in the collaboration area, I just honed in on how do we collaborate with Warsaw, with our city of lakes. So cleaner lakes for the future. We want to be proactive versus reactive, as we've talked about. You guys have partnered with us, and we're one of your contractors to help make sure that these lakes are clean and cleaner for the future. We've also responded to many events. We've had fish kills, chemical spills. More commonly, we've had algal blooms, and I've showed examples of those here in this presentation. We've had science-informed decisions. We've worked with multiple city departments over the years to help in decision-making. We've also done a lot of citizen education and engagement at all different ages, and that's been sustained over the years. We've also done stream monitoring. We want to assess where are these threats coming from, how can we minimize those risks in the future. Promoting and preserving the city's identity as the city of lakes. That's how we have collaborated. There's a new collaboration on the horizon called Lake RX. This is a new phase of the Lilly Center for Lakes and Streams, and so we're really excited about that because it does overlap with the City of Warsaw. So what we mean by Lake RX, that's lake-specific prescriptions for healthy lakes and thriving communities. So kind of a play on the sort of physician prescription idea. We want to activate holistic and evidence-based solutions, and so they need to be long-term, sustained. They need to have some science backing behind them. We want to empower our partners to do more of their good work as we come alongside with this Lake RX program. So right now we're in the startup phase. We're growing momentum, and the initial focus of Lake RX is the Chapman chain, the Tippy chain, Wawasee and Syracuse, which we take as a chain, and Winona. These are the lakes that we have the most data on going back, and we also have a great amount of support. And so we're focusing in on those to show some measurable, visible impact, and then we'll expand to other lakes like Pike and Center and others beyond that in the future. Some of you may have seen we've got a Lilly Endowment seed grant, and that is in the newsletter, the Headwaters newsletter. That's one of the articles in there. It's the cover story in our print newsletter, so you can read a little bit more about that. But the basics of that is that we were awarded $10 million from Lilly Endowment to kick off Lake RX with these 4 lake systems. $2 million of it will be spent over the next 5 years on specific projects, things over on the right-hand side there, solutions on the land. $8 million will be invested, has already been invested, in an endowment specific to Lake RX projects, and that will spin off interest that comes off that endowment every year into the future. Some of the solutions we're looking at for Lake RX, these are the sort of prescriptions, the steps, the solutions that we're going to be doing. We'll be looking to agriculture. A lot of our lakes drain through agricultural areas, so we'll be working with agricultural partners like at Soil and Water Conservation District, Natural Resource Conservation Service. We'll be working on wetlands. Wetlands are a great asset to our lakes in helping clean up the water before the water gets to our lakes, and unfortunately we've lost a lot of those wetlands in the state of Indiana. Solutions in the water, we'll continue with the blue-green algae research. We want to rebalance some ecosystems that has to do with zebra mussels and some fish that can eat zebra mussels. We also want to look at weed management and how we do that and how might we do that differently. We then have some solutions in the community. Water literacy will continue. What responsible boating, we've looked at what boating practices promote cleaner lakes and what boating practices promote dirtier lakes, and we'll be encouraging the cleaner versions. And then also shorelines, how can we have healthier, more native and natural shorelines that can help clean up our lakes. All right, so those were some of the updates. Do you all have any questions for me? I wanted to just give you a little bit of an update and also thank you for your partnership that we've been able to work with over these years.
Dr. Bosch, thank you again for updating not only the council, but really the entire community. Opening it up for questions here. Any questions from the board?
I just have one question. Do you get any collaboration like with some of the other towns like Syracuse and Webster and so forth?
Yeah, so we work, I would say, probably most closely with Warsaw compared to the other cities and towns within Kosciuszko County. But we work with a lot of other civic groups. We've got the government, the county level government agencies like Soil and Water and Natural Resource Conservation Service. We've worked a lot with county commissioners, with the Visitor Commission, which is another county group, county council, and we've certainly worked with some of the smaller communities like North Webster and Syracuse, Town of Winona Lake, Silver Lake, and those as well. But I would say that we've partnered most closely with the city of Warsaw.
And that would be because we're an MS4, and so we have certain requirements that we have to meet as far as public education and things like that. So we're given money for that, but we have to spend it on certain things.
Yes, so that's a really good point, Diane. So Warsaw, unlike those other communities, is required to do some of the stormwater programs that we've worked with you all on. But I would also say that Warsaw, you guys are just really proactive. I mean, you understand the importance of the lakes, and you guys have done that for a number of years, and so we're really appreciative to work together with you guys.
I was always under the impression that, you mentioned zebra mussels a couple
Yes.
of times, and I don't know if they're considered a pest, but I was always under the impression that they help clean the water.
So zebra mussels are really intriguing. So they're filter feeders, which means they, and I think the statistic is they can filter about a liter of water per hour. So you start thinking about the millions of zebra mussels that we have in our lakes, and then how often on some lakes it's every few days the entire water volume is filtered by these zebra mussels. So they're filter feeders, meaning that they are filtering out the algae out of the water, which means the water gets clearer, because in the summer months, typically the reason that our lakes are not super clear is because algae, microscopic little plant cells, are growing in the lake, which makes the lake look more cloudy to us, okay? So zebra mussels, it's true, when they moved in, they made the water look clearer because they ate a lot of the algae. The problem with zebra mussels is they eat the good types of algae and they spit out the bad types that produce toxins. So zebra mussels have lowered the overall algae population, which would make the lake look clearer, but they have done it in such a way that leaves more of the bad type of algae around. So now many of our lakes have 80–90% of the blue-green algae, which is the type that can produce toxins. And so when people say, oh, hey, zebra mussels are a great thing, I need to explain that a little bit more. Certainly clearer, but not cleaner, and that's the distinction. Oftentimes we think of clear means clean, not always in the case of lakes.
That's interesting, thank you.
Yeah, and so if we can get more of the fish that eat zebra mussels in our lakes, we can lower the zebra mussel population and potentially then lower the amount of blue-green algae that we have in our lakes. That's one of those solutions that we're looking at for Lake RX.
What kind of fish eat the zebras?
One type that we know is red ear sunfish. They're actually down in the southern United States, are called shell crackers because they have an affinity for eating those pesky mussels with really hard shells. So somehow their body can digest the soft parts of the mussels even as it passes through. So that's something that we'll be working on with the Indiana Department of Natural Resources to see, hey, is there some way here to work with some of these fish species and reduce zebra mussel populations.
Any other questions for Dr. Lodge?
Well, how many other counties and well, in the state, how many others are really working with what you're doing here?
Well, our center, the Lilly Center for Lakes and Streams, is focused on Kosciuszko County, and that is keeps us plenty busy with over 100 lakes here in this county. And there's no other county in Indiana or other counties within the Midwestern United States that are doing the sort of thing that we're doing, to my knowledge. And so we have something really unique here, and we're, as a county, protecting our lakes and protecting our residents more than other counties throughout the Midwestern United States.
I have a last question. It's terrific that we got this, or you got this grant from the Lilly Foundation. I mean, that's fantastic. Is there other money out there in the form of grants specifically, or any other money in general that the city can try to go after? Or that you need us to help you get that money, or we need you to help us get that money?
Right. Not that I've identified at this point, but that's a really good thought, because oftentimes there does need to be those sort of partnerships to be able to go after some of those additional pools of funding. So let me think about that a little bit more, and certainly if we can add to that fundraising that we've done to do more work faster, then that would be great for our residents. So yeah, I'll make a note of that and look into that a little bit more. It's a good suggestion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As always, thanks so much for all that you do and keeping us up to date on the importance of, as the city of lakes, our county's 100 lakes. That'll take us to reports, oral and written, and we have a May fund report that's being presented to you. Lynn, any comments?
I have no comments, other than the balances are holding up pretty good until we get our distribution bills.
Questions from council? Hearing none, that will take us to unfinished business. We have none. Next is new business, and Lynn, we're gonna keep you busy. There's a resolution here that you want the council to consider. What are we looking at?
It's the annual resolution for the investment of, our funds, our public funds, that bids can go out to all banks in the state that are registered to, take investments for cities and towns
Something that must be done annually, correct?
every year, about this time.
There are no questions. I'll entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
I move we accept resolution 2026-0601.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Lynn, thank you. Next item on the agenda is coming from the Plan Department. Justin, I believe this was looked at by the Plan Commission a while back. Please update us with your request.
Correct, and the petitioner's actually here today, and he might provide a good history on this, and I've got a relatively lengthy memo for you to consider. But this request does come with a favorable recommendation from the Plan Commission. Just to summarize the request, and again, Kevin Diggs is here to represent it, and he might be able to give some background, but there was a PUD created in 2005, Paths of Deerfield. A requirement of our PUDs and our PUD ordinance is that there's an appropriate allocation of recreational space in these developments. PUDs are allowed to be a little bit more dense, so there was consideration given when the city does allow these more dense developments from developers. We would want these smaller lots to have access to a green space or recreational space for the development. This one was, when it was created, some of the language in their documents did not fortify the HOA, the creation of the HOA in the neighborhood. So subsequently, it was not created. There was a partial HOA for the villa section, the more dense area. There's about 18 villas, so that's about 36 units of residential on the south side of this development. They have a partial villa HOA, but there's no HOA for the entire neighborhood. So because that HOA was never codified, the green space that was platted for Block B was never maintained by anyone but the developer. So they've been holding on to this green space for the last 20 years. They made some efforts to reach out to the Villa HOA, but at this point, the Villa HOA does not have the ability to maintain it or the desire to take over, take on that liability and the cost for maintenance. So the alternative is that this green space that's kind of served the community for the last 20 years or so could potentially fall delinquent and just become more of a blight on the neighborhood. The developers come forward with a proposal to subdivide the green space into 2 lots and create 2 single-family houses that would be consistent with the rest of the neighborhood. This proposal is not opposed by the Villa HOA. In fact, they welcome the idea. But again, Kevin can kind of go into some of those details if you'd like to hear from him directly. So yeah, again, this comes with a favorable recommendation from the Plan Commission. It's not a modification of the PUD ordinance. It is more of does the council feel that this is still in alignment with that original subdivision? To give you some context, I took the average square footage of the villa units and compared given the alternative, we definitely recommend, approving the proposal by the developers.
Any questions for Justin?
So just to be clear, excuse me, there's an ordinance in place for PUDs, and by not providing the green space within this development, it's not violating the ordinance?
So the way the ordinance is written, it says allocation of appropriate recreational spaces. So the council could determine whether or not removing that recreational space, the green space that is in the neighborhood would be, that the neighborhood would still be appropriately dense. So it's not a violation of the ordinance, it's just a determination of whether or not you feel it's still an appropriate amount of green space, given the density.
So this was the big debate at Plan Commission, because, I see the violation of the ordinance, but I also believe he's made every possible effort he can for 20 years to get this straightened out, and as he'll tell you himself, he doesn't build any subdivisions like this anymore without requiring an HOA involvement right from the beginning, so he doesn't end up back in this first space. But if you will scroll down and look at the council people that were on, the only one present here still is Jeff, that were on here when this actually was passed. It was one of our very first PUDs in the city. We didn't know a lot about it, he didn't know a lot about it, you know, nobody really knew how this was going to stack up. And the thing was that this was created for those people who had less of a yard. Well, the people who have less of a yard don't want it. So then where does that leave us? He was unable to be successful in getting the rest of the neighborhood to create an HOA. So there's no other HOA out there except the people that live in the dense situation. So I abstained from the vote because I don't like going against an ordinance. So kind of what they're asking is, do we think he's made the best good faith effort possible to take care of this? So right now, he's been paying the taxes on it, he's been mowing it, he's been paying the insurance because they have a gazebo on it. I mean, he's been taking all of the liability for it. And the ordinance doesn't say that the developers required to maintain that space, it just says they're required to plat it in there, and he did. So we felt like we were between a rock and a hard place. So, and Jurgen can speak, he voted differently than I did, but the general sense I gathered was that we felt like he's done everything he can, like we're kind of between a rock and a hard place with this. What do we do with it? Which is why we referred it to the council, because it's the council's ordinance. So I questioned legal at length, and I'm sorry he's not here tonight to explain to you in his own words, because I don't want to go against anything that changes this ordinance so that other developers can come in, and neither do I want to set a precedent that says from now on, this council's just gonna look the other way and not require this green space in new developments. And so that's the dilemma that I had. Maybe Jurgen would like to talk a little bit more about the majority opinion.
Well, I think the majority, we decided that Kevin did his due diligence to do everything he could do to solve this problem. He tried to give it away. He's paid taxes on it for 20 years. He's maintained it. He has the right to ownership. I mean, through the courts, he could probably get ownership because he's paid the taxes and maintained it. No one else has been willing to step up, and no one else that has an interest in the property has volunteered to take it. He can't give it away. So the dilemma is, it's an unsolved problem, and we didn't see any other way to solve it. If anyone is entitled to the property, he is. The people that would get use out of it, which is the residents in that neighborhood, don't want it. So it's kind of, he's stuck between a rock and a hard space. I don't have a problem, as Diane does, I'm totally in favor of it, and I'd recommend we pass it.
And it's just the recommendation of the plan commission that the sidewalk be completed?
I don't think that was even discussed, was it?
That was added by me.
Okay.
So you can consider that or not, but that was, lot 80 does not have a sidewalk. It wasn't discussed in the plan commission meeting, so feel free.
Is that the lot number of the green space?
No, lot 80 is in the northwest region of it. It's an undeveloped lot that had some wetlands and some topography issues, and it never got a sidewalk, so there's a weird gap in the sidewalk there. And again, Kevin can respond if that seems unreasonable. He could definitely speak to his thoughts on that, but I thought that would be a nod to the neighborhood to complete that circuit of sidewalk, because there's kind of an odd gap there.
It came about maybe 5 years ago and asked for the same thing, and I said, let's see what we can do about getting an HOA or getting something else. And we actually went out and walked this area together, went all through it. Those areas that they thought might have been buildable lots turn out to be unbuildable wetlands. They're also not green space, because nobody can go back there and play either. I mean, it's kind of a mess, but we did look at that sidewalk, how it just abruptly stops at that lot, and then on the other side of it, it goes on. So what the kids were doing when we were out there is then riding their bike at the street to go around it and then getting, back on the sidewalk. And so that wasn't the best. When I was out there 5 years ago, there were people in the green space. There was a birthday party going on, kids were flying their kites, there was an impromptu soccer game, but I don't know who's been using it, since then, but, so.
I was on the council many years ago when this came through. Jeremy, Justin, you correct me if I see anything that's off. A planned unit development, I will tell that, again, I was on the plan commission for almost 30 years, is its own country or its own planet. And you basically, as a council, working with the plan commission, can pass an ordinance that will allow any type of development to happen in that specific PUD. Anything goes. And you can see the list that's in the ordinance that was passed. That is all approved by the council. All of the rules and the guidelines of the plan commission that we must follow, those are pushed aside, and the developer, with approval from the council, can develop that property the way that the developer wants and the way that the city wants. And that's why you're seeing an ordinance. If you look at Josh's comment, what am I seeing here? If you look at item 1, it says the allocation, Justin talked about this, the allocation of appropriate recreational space. That was in there, good faith effort. I would say rock and a hard place, what both of you have said. I would say that the history of this development now encourages, and it's a favorable recommendation from Plan Commission, that the proper allocation or the allocation of appropriate recreational spaces right now, because of the history, is none. It's none. And you can decide that as a council because you have the power to do it within this ordinance. The petitioner is here, Justin is here, because they need your approval. The Plan Commission can only give a recommendation because of how unique a PUD is. And why do we have PUDs? Jeremy, Justin, is because of a unique situation, a unique development that just square peg around it doesn't fit or work under normal guidelines, but we can make it work with a PUD as long as the council approves it. Like Jurgen and Cindy have said, efforts have been made. It's been 20 years, over 20. I still can't believe that. Where a good faith effort has played out. However, the petitioner is saying, along with the plan department and the plan commission, that maybe the appropriate recreational space is nothing. Is nothing. And you need to consider it because you're a council. Jeremy, Justin, anything that I said that could be misleading, or am I on track with?
No, I think he
So would the property revert back to the developer, the
He still
original?
owns it because they didn't take ownership of it.
Say that again?
Theoretically, he still owns it because they never took ownership of it. Everything was legally laid out for them to take ownership of it. They denied their willingness to take ownership of it.
So it would go back to him,
So it's still in his ownership.
and he's paying taxes.
He owns it now. He's
He
still
owns
got
it.
taxes.
So if there's two paths forward. He stops paying taxes, which I don't blame him. And it sits there and collects non-taxes, grows up and falls apart, or we build some houses.
Well, we need houses.
So how do we move forward? New ordinance or?
So that's a good question. So the ordinance doesn't need to be revised per legal. It's just, if you find that this, removing this green space is still appropriate for the neighborhood, which it sounds like it is what they would want, then you could approve this plat, that would subdivide that block B.
So Justin, the original intent was to form an HOA, and the HOA would maintain the property. And the HOA was never formed?
For the majority of the neighborhood, correct. There's a small villa HOA that was formed, but I don't even think it includes all of the villas. I think some of them are out.
One section.
Yeah, so it wasn't required, so some people opted out. So there's a small HOA that just can't sustain the space or doesn't have the desire to either.
So, I'd just like a point of clarification. If lot 91 and 92 in any subdivision were designated as green space, would the HOA then continue paying the property tax on them? That would not,
Typically,
would never be exempt from property tax, would it?
If there was an HOA. who-
Well, whoever owned it still would have to pay taxes on it, but I guess that's my question.
Yeah, we have other neighborhoods that have HOA, maintain green space, and
And they pay the
Park
tax.
Ridge South, yeah, they
property
pay
on it.
tax on it.
As part of the formation of the HOA,
Yeah.
they take over ownership and maintenance of those
And maintain it and pay taxes.
green spaces or stormwater spaces, whatever they may be.
Well, the issue here is nobody else wants to maintain it or pay the taxes, so I just don't see any other option. So, over to that point, I'd like to make a motion that we pass that ordinance for the replat.
Hold on here. The request from the plan department, approved final plat for the proposed splitting of block B into two lots with construction of two single-family homes. That's the request. You move to approve that?
Yes.
Okay,
Say that again.
um,
What section is it?
Is it actually approving a final plat or an amendment to the current plat? What should it actually be?
the recommendation from the city planner, Justin, you can help me out here, but you were just basically saying that
Yeah, so we need to approve the new final plat. So we're not amending a plat necessarily, well, we're replatting these two lots. So we're replatting block B.
So the motion is actually to replat, not to approve a final plat.
Well, PUD is a final plat.
Are we splitting the plat that's there and renumbering it, or was that already numbered that way?
Labeled as a block B, so we're.
Yeah, they weren't numbered before.
So we're actually splitting it in half,
You're creating
assigning numbers.
two new legal descriptions, basically.
It seems to me that, we may be trying to force something into these PUDs that the people don't want. Which could, I mean, in this case, it only includes two lots. I'm sure that, that would have been helpful to have those as residential lots to begin with. It seems to me that, I keep hearing about how certain local ordinances and laws tend to drive up the price of property. And I know that, it may not have had a huge impact on selling of each of the individual lots, but that is one one thing about, I think we need to look at that.
Each situation is unique, and there are subdivisions in the, Park Ridge South is the one that comes to mind, or Park Ridge. That neighborhood, that HOA takes a great deal of pride in their green spaces, and they maintain them. So I think each neighborhood has to assess whether they want to take on that responsibility and maintenance and liability. And I think some neighborhoods do it, and some it's less effective. And I think this one, it's 20 years ago. I think there were some things that the developer learned along the way. I think there's some things that we're already doing a little differently from when this was platted. So I think each situation's a little unique. So it's
So
just,
how do we navigate that so that we can go either or? I mean, do we have any other, developments that are in the same position right now? I'm thinking of Gateway and how they don't have too many people up there at all. That's a PUD, isn't it?
Yes.
it is, and I think their HOA is required. So most developers have added that language into their,
Right.
when somebody buys a house, they're required to join that HOA.
And that's
We have
kind of the
other
point I'm
developments.
making, by us requiring them to put green space in there, aren't we driving the price up of the land?
So it's, the requirement is for the allocation of appropriate level of green space, so a recreational space. So that's where the council comes in and says, we've deemed this level of recreational space or green space as appropriate or not appropriate. So if we find that, PUDs are very flexible, like Jeff mentioned, so if you determine that these green spaces are a hindrance to the development, you could consider it however you wanna consider it, but that's part of the flexibility.
HOA you consider it, so I think where you're going, it makes sense, but I guess the balancing act is this. If you create the mandatory HOA, which is typically what is happening now, which did not happen then,
Right.
they have to pay for that. They could choose as an HOA to come forward to you and say, hey, we don't wanna pay for this anymore, can we subdivide it and sell it off as lots?
Okay, so we don't establish an ordinance for each PUD, right?
We do.
We do. Okay, so that would be the point when we would say whether or not it needed.
Each PUD.
The council.
So that's how we have to become smarter about when we're in the planning process.
It's easy to sit here now and say,
Oh, yeah.
but back then, it's like, oh, they're gonna have nice little green space.
Money-
that
money
the
morning quarterback.
The neighborhood can use, obviously, they don't want it. So I mean, it's just even simpler, and I think to simplify that a little bit, going forward, as you see PUDs as a council, you may advocate for some green space, and they may put green space in, but the HOA eventually gonna either come to you and say, we don't want it, or they're gonna maintain it. So I think that's still off your plate at this point.
Yeah,
We're here because they don't want it, they don't wanna maintain it.
yeah. I guess I'm just looking to the future, trying to not run into this again.
I think some of it's probably side, we could go into why it didn't work. I mean, I think PUDs in general, which is, we've done a few, but we try, if we can avoid the PUD, we try to, because PUDs in general work for much larger projects. We're talking 500-600 homes, not 90. So when you're doing a 500 or 600 home, maybe some commercial, that's what PUDs were really designed for. I think on a smaller scale, they become a little bit more complicated, which is why some of his new subdivisions, we've tried to move away from the PUD and tried to make them fit our ordinances, and still get the things that we want with density, lot sizes, and different types of units.
Yeah, perhaps you'd like to hear from him, because he's very, if you wanna talk to him about
Yeah.
what you're doing now. what
You've
you're
dealt with
doing.
this for 20 years. What did you know about it?
We've been out talking about it, and he was very helpful, I think, at the.
And maybe, Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know, we've been doing PUDs now all across northern Indiana, but typically, when we would do a PUD, was a requirement that our villa, zero lot line duplex product would not fit in any other bucket. It wouldn't fit in R1, R2, so the only mechanism we had 20 years ago was to go through planned unit development. And so that was the only tool that we had, and as Justin mentioned earlier, when you compare the density that we have in our development compared to an R2, we're actually a little larger, right, than what's allowable. So, you know,
And we've adjusted some of that, which is why he doesn't have some of the newer subdivisions are not PUDs, but we made some adjustments in our
Yeah.
language to avoid some of the complications that PUDs create. We still want the density, we still want the mixture of units, because the demand for them is there. And we need to meet all the segments, I talk about housing segments, right? We're trying to meet all those segments and provide all those different types of housing needs. And the subdivisions he's done here have done a lot of that, and we've made those adjustments over the years to get away from the PUD type standard.
Maybe you could just give them some examples of your other subdivisions around here, just so they know, like, what we're talking about.
oh, sure, like our most recent is Bella Augusta community, which is that direction. We're actually working on phase 4, 5. Bella Augusta, there's 2 more phases out there. One will deliver now, and then another final phase there in a few years. We've also did a villa community on the south side of town called Tigers Retreat, and that was all duplex villa style community. So we've really,
They have a green space that they wanted and do maintain.
yeah, and so it's got case by case.
Which is that around your pond?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think there's.
My mother lives out there. It's very nice.
Yeah, so it's a little bit case by case. You know, I will tell you, what we've learned in 20 years is when we draft the language for the HOA and our covenants and restrictions, we change one little word from they may have an HOA to they must have. Because the problem is 20 years ago, and Dad said, let's kind of keep the prices down and make sure it's affordable. Let's just charge 0 for the HOA to encourage lot sales. If y'all recall, that time period, we went through a little rough patch in 08, 09 when we were doing everything we could to facilitate and encourage sales. So the problem is if you don't charge at least $1 on that first lot, then you never escalate, you never have, and so to try to come in later and say we want to form an HOA, and they say, wait a minute, that means we have to pay a fee, right? We're not paying a fee, we've never paid a fee. And so between not charging that fee early on and then not having the must language, we've ended up with an ability for them to reject the formation of the HOA. We've now fixed that. We don't have that problem in Bella Augusta and all our communities moving forward, but lessons learned from 20 years ago, so.
So Jeremy, I do have a question, and it brings up something in the future. So, not necessarily this situation, but if you have a PUD and the developer turns a lot or a green space over to the HOA, they own it, is that correct?
Yeah.
Can they then vote to sell it?
Yeah.
So, we could have solved this problem real simple by if there were an HOA, just turn it over to the HO and they could sell it back to the developer. Would that work? I mean, I guess I just have a problem with the fact that we provide green space for neighborhoods, but the HOA can turn around and say, we don't want it to sell it. Yeah, I mean, nothing we can do about it.
Keep in mind, they have to come to you
Yes,
and get that approval.
Like why we're here now.
yeah.
You could deny it.
Sure,
I mean, the problem here is the HOA don't even want to take ownership of it, right?
right.
So we, like I said, we have 2 options. We build some houses, or we have a defunct tax lot that's going to grow up in grass. Because if I'm him, I'm not paying the taxes and I'm not maintaining.
Well, I guess that goes to another point, the HOA could quit paying the taxes and it could go back to a tax sale also. They could get rid of it that way.
Well, they wouldn't, because if they don't pay the taxes, it's gonna go to whoever buys it at the tax sale.
Right, that's what I mean, that's one way for them to get rid of it without selling it.
It is, but they would still, anybody who bought that would still have to come before you. And we're talking in a PUD setting.
Sure.
We still have to come before you to get approval to do something other than what it was. So that's not an end of, yes and no, that's not an end to, still has to be approved by you to do something different.
So we do have a little bit of.
But we're always gonna have your thumb on the scale and deciding on what happens to that.
Appreciate that clarification.
Because it's a PUD, that's why it went to the plan commission, and that's why he's standing here right now. He has to come to the council, because it's,
that's why I'm in favor of passing this, because we've taken all the steps I think that are necessary, so we might as well just go ahead with it.
Let me, if it's okay, point of
Sure.
order, the planning department is asking for sidewalk on Block 8.
Yeah.
Do you have any comment on that? I appreciate your.
Sure, I have no problem with that at all. There's a little section sidewalk, lot 80, wasn't able to be developed because of the topography, but yeah, we'd be happy to do that. Certainly we'll have an economic gain here, of being able to sell this lot and build a house, and we'd be happy to put that in.
Are there sidewalks on the two lots that we're talking about already?
Yeah, the sidewalks are actually complete all the way in front of this, so we might have to replace a section or two when we build some houses there.
So that's not really an issue.
No.
Appreciate that. So no concerns from the petitioner with the completion of the sidewalk on lot 80. And then looking for the council, looking for approval of the plat, splitting block B into two lots for the construction of two single-family homes. That's what we're looking at. Again, this was a favorable recommendation from planning commission.
And again, I'll just say, I have total sympathy with where he's at. I think he's done everything he can. How we knew they don't want it is we got a letter from them, okay, saying they don't want it. So,
We do.
yeah, we have a letter from the PUD that homeowners association, they don't want it. So there is a letter from them. And so, to me, I don't really object to it. I just did what I did because I thought it needed to come before here. We need to really discuss it. We need to understand these going forward, like Jeremy and Justin said, and really think about them and the topography and just everything that goes into it as to when we consider what is good recreational space there, you know, whether we say it has to be a whole lot or it has to be that there's sidewalks everywhere so that kids can go up and down the sidewalks or, you know, whatever, which is kind of already required now anyway. But, you know, just whatever we would really look at it and just not automatic. And I've been one of the biggest ones to say whenever a developer becomes before plan commission, where is the green space? I'm kind of known for that, so they kind of get used to, okay, I'm gonna come, I gotta show where green space is the first time, or it's just gonna get delayed, you know? But we just passed one in for Greenbrier, for instance, and part of what we allowed was a walkway kind of around the retention pond, and then another lot that was, designated for that PUD. So, I mean, there's just different creative ways that we can look at it, so. I just thought it was really important for the council to just think about this, wrestle with it, know what's going on.
So correct me if I'm wrong, there is no HOA, right?
There is not what we call a master HOA for the entire community of Passive Deerfield, but inside the community, there is a section of attached villas, which their lawn care and snow removal is taken care of just for that section,
Okay,
and they have their own villa HOA.
okay.
But there is not a master HOA, they didn't prove to have that form.
And they don't wanna maintain this.
Correct.
You've made a good faith effort, as far as I understand. You've been paying taxes, and we need housing. You can't make them form an HOA, they don't wanna do it anyway. So it seems to me that I would second Jurgen's motion and grant this request. I mean, it just seems like common sense to me.
So the motion approving the plat for the proposed splitting of block B into two lots for the consideration of two single-family homes. Also, the petitioner, a following condition or a condition by plan, which you are okay with, is the completion of the sidewalk on lot 80. Jurgen, is that a so moved or not?
So moved.
All right, and then is there a second?
I second.
There is a second, so there is a motion to approve and also a second. Any further discussion?
I'm just curious, I'm noticing our visitors are very interested. Do you
motion and a second, further discussion, if you would like that as presiding officer. Would anybody like to speak? Would anybody like to speak on
Now's
this
your
question?
opportunity.
Okay, we just wanna make sure it's James.
Okay, we just wanna make sure, we don't know, so we wanna ask.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, good. So there's a motion and a second, any further discussion by the council? Call for the vote, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you all very much, appreciate it.
Mr. Skinner, thanks for all you do.
I'm trying to make this as painless as possible, so, we waited to get as many of these tax abatements at once, so that we can kind of go through all of them, rather than, taking 3 or 4 a year, taking 3 or 4 a year, and so forth. In the past, we've kind of, I went through the whole list, and you can make a motion to approve, them all, if that's your preference, or we can go through them one by one. Either way, I can do either one, so whatever your pleasure is.
Any suggestions for
I'd like to just have one vote.
one vote? If there are any questions, then we can stop on that one. Okay, Jeremy, so it would be.
Yeah, so I'll just start going through all of them, and the one thing I will say is, I don't think there's any tax abatement on here that's new to you. So most of these are at least 2 to 10 years old.
Will
So
you
they
tell us
should be.
as you go through which ones will be in, well, here again next year, and which ones are?
Yeah, so everyone's listed on this memo, so you can look at them, we'll go through this. So we'll start with the 802 Center LLP, this is the senior housing project on Center Street. It's an affordable housing project, like all of those, we have supported them with the tax abatement. So they made the investment, in this case, 13.7 million, 72 units. And it's been complete, and it's in its 5th year of full assessment. So keep in mind, sometimes you might see a 9 or 10 year, and you say, hey, why did it come back? Well, sometimes it depends on, just, you can't really look at the date. We're 2 years in a cycle, so by the time it's occupied, it gets taxable to it pays taxes, it can be 2 years. So you can apply for a tax abatement and not pay your first set of taxes until 2 years from now, so keep that in mind. And all of these CF1s on top of that are not for this year. You already approved the CF1s for this year. These are for 2027. So keep that in mind as well. So 802 Senior Housing Project, we granted a 10-year tax abatement. They're in their 5th year. Flexos has 2 of them. So they got 2013, 2017. The 2013 one, like I said, is a personal property, and it's occurred over a number of years. So they acquired that first property over a 4-year period. So some of those would have started in 2013. Some of them, I think, they ended in 2018 in that acquisition period. So some of the tax abatements for that could go on to 2028. In this case, some of those pieces of equipment are in their 10th year of their tax abatements. Some of them may still have 2 years left of tax abatement. But they've made the investment in the personal property and have hired 40 new employees since that time, and 99 over the entire period of time. So from 2013 to date, they've hired 99 total new employees. So 602 Lighter Drive, 1605 West Center, 1510 Armstrong, the 2017 tax abatement. Same thing, it was real and personal property. We approved both. They've estimated at 15 employees at that time. They've since added 78, and that is in the 8th year of its abatement. 3350 Lake City Highway. This was a rural Keene, I believe. So they spent 1.6 million to refurbish a property that had been vacant for 3 years. They've hired 33 employees since that vacant building has been turned back on the tax rolls, and they're in their 4th year of their abatement. 1445 Polk Drive, there's going to be quite a few Polk Drive ones here, but that's the Patrick Industry. There's two different Patrick Industry abatements. One was for the first shell building we did, and then they added on to that shell building. So the first one was roughly 3.2 million in new equipment. They've had 204 employees at that location. That's in its 8th year of abatement. The original shell building is in its 10th year of abatement. 6.2 million in new construction, and saying they have 208 employees at Patrick Industry. The real property for the phase 2 of that is in the 7th year, so keep in mind there's two. So the original shell building is 6.2, and then the second 64,000 square foot that was added on 4.9 is in its 7th year tax abatement. 1295 Polk Drive, this is the Banner Medical property. They supply their compliance for real property. This is West Hill, so they own at least 2 Banner Medical. That was 76 was what they estimated. They have 34 employees, and they're in their 10th year of abatement, and that is for real property. 1195 Polk Drive, this is the Med Artist building, so this would be our second shell building. 65,000 square foot, $8 million building, and they are in their 7th year of abatement. 1395 is the Mentor Media building, so that was our third shell building. Granted a 10-year tax abatement, roughly 11.3 million in a new building, 101 square feet, and that is in its 3rd year. Texamo Precision Casting, 2016. This was granted in Kosciuszko County, was annexed in by us, so for real and personal property. So we wouldn't have seen the original SB1, but when we annexed in, we took over that tax abatement. Estimated around 4.7 million, 2.8 million in real property and 2.4 in personal. And they've hired 56 employees since that time. They're in their 8th year. 800 South Buffalo Street, this is the Wildman Group. Was granted a 10-year tax abatement on personal property, 2.1 million personal property equipment was spent. That was in its 10th year of that abatement as well. 800 South Buffalo again, 2022, they did some more improvements. They estimated hiring an additional 49 employees since they filed in 2022. That is in their 4th year, and that was additional office space and some as personal property as well.
Jeremy, can I interrupt you just to help the public that you said like 4th year of the abatement, 10th year of the abatement. How's that work percentage wise? Are they 10-year abatements? Help me out.
So the council adopts, well now, back then, some of these may have been under the old rules where the 10-year tax abatement has a specific schedule. But it's been like 8, so I would say most of these are adopted schedules by you. So every time we bring a tax abatement in, there's a schedule and you have to adopt that schedule. But typically it starts at 100 and goes down to 20%. I think it's when it times out in year 10. So yeah, it's phased down, so it's 100, 90, 80, 60, or 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, all the way down to 10. You can grant other abatements that are lesser or greater now, so most of the abatements we've granted are 10-year tax abatements, but we could grant 3, 5, 6, 7. I mean, at this point, you can pretty much approve whatever abatement schedule you want. That has changed. That's not always been the case, but.
So, this came up during a meeting we had. For example, Slade Auto, they had a building that was worth, say, I'm just picking numbers out of the sky, $1 million. They would continue paying tax on that amount, is that correct?
Yes.
They do not pay tax on improvements the first year.
Depending on the tax abatement.
Right, but I mean, it would typically be no tax the first year, and then it would increase 10%.
Yeah.
But the clarification from the citizen was, why do we give a tax abatement on the entire property, and that's not true. They still pay taxes on the original assessed value. Is that correct?
In most cases. Now, I did not do that tax abatement. So
I understand.
if you're asking me something I'm not typically, there's two things that can happen. If it were to come before us, there is some statute in the state code that does allow them to get abatement on something that's been vacant or considered a dinosaur building over a 3-year period. And we have done some of those. I don't know what Slate, I don't know what the county did or didn't do with Slate. But that is typically a smaller time, it used to be a smaller time frame. So I think it was 5 years was the max on that. Originally it was 3 years, I think it changed to 5 years, to where they could get some of the original assessed value abated for a short period of time.
But typically, they would still pay the same amount of taxes if they were.
There's always, I mean, the fallacy here is, and we run into this all the time with grant tax abatements, is they think, oh, you've abated all the taxes. That's almost never the case.
I'm just trying to point that out.
Because what happens is there's always land value there that never gets abated. So let's say I own or AutoCam's a prime example. That land will have an assessed valuation going in that will never get abated. And same thing with Slate. Slate will always pay some taxes. It's never a complete tax-free thing. I don't know what the value of that is. They could have that land at 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, I don't know, but they will most certainly pay a tax.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Another point would be that the abatement is for what they invest.
Yes.
In other words, they say we're going to invest $1 million. If they only invest $500,000, they only get abated on the $500,000.
That's correct. And then the key point there is invested, right? That's why there's no such thing
It's the
as
actual
no
spend
free
money.
taxes, right? Like, that's why Slate is paying taxes, regardless of whether they had it abated or not, because the land value, they did not create, and therefore they cannot get credit for it.
Thank you, Jeremy.
1800 Center Street, that's Zimmer, they were granted 10-year tax abatement. When was that granted? About 4 years ago. They have since spent $29.9 million in new equipment, and they are in their 4th year of their abatement. Keep in mind, real property is based on dollar amount spent in jobs. Personal property is purely based on did they buy the personal property. So to Jack's point, they can come in, and a lot of times we estimate, I tell them to estimate high, like if you think you're gonna spend $20 million on personal property, make sure you put that in there, because if you spend less, it doesn't hurt you. You're only going to get abated what you spend. But if you spend more, you're only gonna get abated what was presented. Biomeds is another county one we adopted. They had 28 million in new personal property. They roughly spent 16 million over that, and it's in the 9th year of its abatement. Another biomed in 2022, this was one that I believe we did adopt. It was a 10-year tax abatement. R&D, biomed has spent around 7 million in new equipment, and that is in the 3rd year of its abatement. Former owner property is another affordable housing project, 2525. So they were granted a 10-year abatement, 60 affordable family units, 15.5 million was the cost of construction, and they are in their 3rd year of abatement. 905 Executive Drive, Danco. This is the one we did a few years ago, where they did the expansion. They spent 2.1 million on real property and 4.2 million in new manufacturing equipment. They've hired 5 new employees to date. They are in their 2nd year of abatement. Lake City Heat Treating. This one may have also been in the county. This would have been on that time, I can't remember if we did this one or if it was a county one, but either way, in 2019, they applied for personal property improvements, around 4.8 million. They spent roughly 4.4 and have hired 10 new employees since 2019. They are in their 6th year of abatement. LeGrand, formerly Milestone AV Technologies. They spent roughly $266,000 in personal property. personal property one, so separate from the real property. They spent over $4 million in personal property and have hired 37 new employees since starting in 2016. And they are also in the 10th year of their abatement.
So Jeremy, just, I guess kind of a legal question, how does a company that no longer exists apply for a tax abatement? So like Zimmer no longer exists, Biomed no longer exists, now it's Zimmer Biomed, so how does that work?
The tax abatement just carries forward with whatever the ownership is, so in this case, there's Zimmer Biomed. Now, I'm not their tax accountant, so I think they may have different segments split up, and so their tax accountants, the ones that complete these forms. Also, however they do their taxes, that's the way they're represented in the CF1 forms. So Zimmer Biomed may be an umbrella holding company, but there may be these other underlying, if you think back, you may not remember this, but, 7 years ago, before the Zimmer Biomed merger, Zimmer had Zimmer Inc., Zimmer USA, Zimmer's Production or something like that. So they had 3 different.
I do remember, because my dad worked for them, so yeah.
So same thing here. So even though it's like Zimmer Biomed, yes, but they each have different segments and their tax
Yeah,
account.
Bristol Myers acquired one of those, and yeah, I remember kind of, yeah.
So their tax accountants are the ones that fills out, so I'm assuming
Okay.
they have whatever the tax structure is, that
I was
falls
just
under that
curious.
entity.
Continue to approve that for an
Yeah.
entity that didn't exist anymore.
But in, Milestone and LeGrand and what was it before, the Daylight, it's all the same too, so they were bought, purchased, but the tax payment continues just under whoever the new owner is.
Okay.
It's like that's part of the purchase package.
Yeah. Any other questions?
There are, any other questions? If there are none, Jeremy, you're seeking a motion to continue the abatements?
Yep, that's my recommendation.
I'll make a motion that we continue the abatements as presented.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second.
Mike, did you second that, Mike?
Yes, it's motion by Diane, second by Mike. Any further discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Jeremy, thanks for all your work. It's, and the investment from the private sector, multi-millions and countless jobs. Appreciate it.
We lost our visitors.
Yeah, we did. Everybody left.
Wonder if they were bored.
Questions?
Start talking about that, and they're going like, yeah,
Yeah, we're going home. Yeah. This is great. Poor Dave.
This is the king.
Anything else? Any other matters?
Just a comment, we had a pretty successful Freedom Fest last weekend, despite the weather, had to change directions a few times, but I saw where the Visitors Bureau had tracked well over 4,000 visitors to the event over the 3 days, so
That's great. That is great.
big thanks to Mike for his hard work.
Yes.
He did do a lot of work, didn't
Indeed,
he?
yes, he did.
And it worked really well.
Anything else?
I just like to add, I've been driving by the new street in front building, it's progressing very well, very impressive.
Looking forward to, there'll be a partial move-in, I Good point. I'll keep my eyes on that, because I'm out there quite a bit, and, when they get,
Next 2 or 3 weeks, it's supposed to be pouring, I got segment before, for reporting before, so next couple of weeks, most of it should be done.
While we're talking about that, I'd like to, and I've talked to ex-mayor Joe Tomer, he agrees with me, I would like to at least voice my opinion, I'd like to see us keep the sewer building just as an extra building, 'cause I know there are plans to demolish that, and I just think it would be foolish, since it's totally out of the way, just to keep it in case we need it down the road, because I'm sure it costs $500,000 to $1 million to rebuild that, so if there are plans to tear it down, I'd like to voice my opinion on it, have us reconsider that.
there are plans to do that, part of just traffic flow and everything that they wanted to do, and we approved it. So, but yeah, noted.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you're comfortable addressing this without legal here, but, I'm already getting, when we don't have another meeting before the 4th of July, I'm already getting questions because we have nightly fireworks around the lakes right now. What, does anybody know the current, I mean, I know we have to go with Indiana code.
Again, I wanna make sure I look everything up again. I know Jack and Josh have spent a lot of time with this, and then we ended up saying, and Mike, I'm sorry, okay, good.
Yeah.
Shut up. But a lot of work, and, we're following state code, but right now, I don't wanna respond to that, but,
Okay.
but I can, I'll look it up.
Maybe we can, post that on social media when we get that information.
Yes,
So that
I'll,
we could maybe get it to Times Union, just so
Okay.
that people are aware.
There's actually a story in today's newspaper.
Hmm?
There's a story in today's newspaper.
oh, good.
Oh, okay,
I talked to Fire Marshal Jeremy Williams about it.
well, you're ahead of me.
There, good.
Thank you, I haven't
Good
read
news.
today's yet, so thanks, David.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great, because I just would wanna be, I wanna have
Yeah, I
that
know,
fun.
me too.
Yeah.
I didn't know he wasn't gonna be here, I would ask ahead.
I bet he would've said the same thing, we gotta look it up, and, but no, good, so we'll take a check the local news report, thank you. Anything else? I do appreciate the council being here. War Mechanical has taken over. Jeremy Skinner is still there, up on the 3rd floor. I was there this morning for an hour and a half, and, but the second floor is, it looks like what you can remember in your area, and, they're in there starting to work, and so,
I heard them.
yeah, I bet you can hear it, yeah, so, appreciate everybody's patience and your willingness to continue to come here. You're allowing the plan and the building department, to be in the council chambers, so. Okay. Anything else?
Is the parking, plan going according to plan?
Well, it's depending on who you are, where you are.
Yeah, depending on who you talk to.
Yeah, but,
I saw him.
the only
walking
thing I'll
to-
say is, it's new, we all have to be patient. I've talked about that. I do believe we put things in place that change the behavior, I think, in a positive way. We've offered over 100 spaces in the lots off the street for merchants and employees. That seems to be going fairly well. And I will just tell you, looking out of my office, that it seems to be more parking spaces, but I have no facts to back that up, so.
I saw him walking today, I thought they were supposed to be able to drive and take care of this.
They can do a bit of both, they can do both.
Okay.
So,
I think one of the misconceptions, or one thing that people are not understanding is they're still thinking they can park 2 hours in one place and then move and park 2 hours, because I've seen some people complain, oh gosh, I thought as long as I moved my car, it was okay, so they don't seem to be picking up on that.
The goal is if the car does leave the zone, which again, it takes a couple cycles, and then they come back, it will start a new one. But if they don't leave the zone, the downtown area where it is, then they have not officially left. And as a result, they're still ticking in their 2 hours.
I took my 2 hours and I left.
Okay, but if you actually, you know, I had somebody screenshot for me, I mean, they were there for longer than 2 hours, they paid $5, and then they had to pay a 50-cent convenience fee, and they felt like that was kind of adding insult to injury, that they had to pay to park, and then they had to, we were kind of forcing them to use their credit card, and then they got charged.
Just an FYI too, Diane, or, sorry, Cindy, on all our credit card purchases, we don't, there's a convenience fee.
Right, yeah, when I do that, because I pay up sewage and everything,
Yes.
but I don't know, I think it's a little different with the parking, so.
I'll check into that, I'll check and see, and just make sure that we have clarification.
Okay.
I think it's interesting, I was, told a story, last Thursday, of a person who, from out of town came in, from a larger city, which you have to charge, you know, they have to pay for parking. And he comes in and he tells this friend of mine, he says, "You mean I gotta pay to eat at the downtown now? You know, for parking?" I mean, he comes from a city where they charge more than that. And, he was told, "No, you get 2 free hours." He was expecting to have to pay right off the bat, because that's the way it's done everywhere, except here.
And the signs are a little confusing, because people are.
Yeah.
We have parking meters.
Yeah.
When we had parking meters.
I will live with, and I appreciate you guys, I was talking to Mike earlier today about it. I will live with some of those frustrations, whatever percentage it is, and I would say it's probably a very small percentage, so we can keep the 2 hours free. It's a very unique situation. It helped us hold on to status quo. In fact, not only for 2 hours free, you don't even need to start a session. You just, that's what we've always done. And so, because we have done that, and again, I greatly appreciate your support, that has caused some of these questions, but again, it's June. You know, we're in our first month of really officially enforcing it, and I'd actually say probably less than that, halfway through. So I'm hoping that the regulars and even people from outside the community will learn and see how the system works. And again, I just appreciate everybody's patience and our willingness to try it. We'll know more this fall. We'll know more as we go through the winter, and then we can continue to make adjustments and continue to do better. But I'm just so glad we're at this point. So a lot of credit to you, the council, and a lot of credit to other stakeholders, starting with Justin Taylor at the point, working through all this. So, but keep voicing and sharing that, because if we don't know, then we can't help. So, anything else? I'll entertain the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
There's a second. All
Third.
in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
It's kind of funny. However we can say this,
Who were those people that were here? Anyone know?
I don't know. I don't know. I should have, I welcome them, but.
They waited to
I would like to see.
We go down to my brother's house every year.
They seem really interesting.
Steal all the fireworks, and he buys a bunch of them and lights them off. So, we do it down there, and that way, I don't have to clean anything up, my kids can watch fireworks. So, yeah.
Something drew me.
So, yeah, how about you?
Understand their frustration and that, okay, you're gonna make it.
Yeah. But I'm wondering, I don't know. Maybe we should
That's
get
fun,
a-
Gary.
They post a lot of stuff.
They